As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is, and our desire is, to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today. This is vlog number 22, and we are the 16th of August, and it is the 11th Sunday after Pentecost, if you can believe that. And what we have been doing is kind of opening up our time together by lighting a candle, one of the sacred scents that's being offered from around the world. And this one is called the scent of the saints. It's to capture a lot of sanctuaries around the world where the saints have worshipped, and it's by Frederick Malle, and there's a lot of woods and incense in here. So I'm just gonna light it and enjoy the aroma as we're talking about the lectionary readings for the 16th of August. I was very tempted to do the first one, which was to spend the most time with the Genesis one, where last week the Genesis reading was where Joseph's brothers, you remember? Their exact words were, "Let's kill the dreamer," and that's been a constant refrain throughout history. Their brother was just a dreamer in their mind, having these strange dreams, and instead of killing him, they sold him. And so this week, it's the, not "Let's kill the dreamer," but he reveals to his brothers in this time of famine who he is. And this great line, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living? I am Joseph, your brother, the one you sold into Egypt. God sent me ahead of you." God sent me ahead of you. God will always send some people ahead to carpe manana for everyone else. In a world where everything's moving, you don't carpe diem. You'll miss it every time. The only way you can hit a moving target is to carpe manana. And Joseph was a carpe manana for his people. And this is one of the great stories. But I am going to be talking about this a little bit, because when they all are revealed and all forgiven, and it says there is weeping and kissing and rejoicing. And there is, when the presence of God is felt, there is a manifestation of that presence. And that's what we're going to talk about this week. Here's the psalm. The psalm is 113. It only has 3 verses. But how good and precious it is when God's people live together in unity. I wanted to spend some time with this one. I was almost tempted, because the key is to live together, dwell together in unity. Now, we do that in diversity, but the point is not the diversity. The end is not the diversity. Diversity is a means to the unity. It doesn't say how good and precious it is when God's people dwell together in diversity. No, God made us all diverse. There's not one of us is alike. Unfortunately, we try and spend all our time to become like everybody else. No, God made us different, diverse. All the nations of the world, all the peoples, all the cultures. What is there? 6,000 languages out there. But the point is not to celebrate the diversity. Yes, the diversity is to be affirmed and established and developed. But the point is, it's for the purpose of unity, harmonious difference, unity in diversity, diversity in unity. So, I mean, we could do the same thing with a lot of other words, like how good and precious it is when God's people live together in, well, equality. Well, really? Okay. No, we're all created equal, but now we're not all equally created. I mean, God made each of us different. I mean, you can do some things I can't do. I mean, you can do math. Good for you. We are not equal in math. No, God made us diverse. So equality levels everything out. And no, the point is, yes, we all are created equal, but we are not equally created. And the point is not to be equal. The point is to be diverse in that equality. We got a lot of confusion going on, and we need to straighten some things up. But this is not I decided not to do that. So I really want to spend some time with the Romans text. Romans 11, 1 to 2, and 29 to 32. And this is where Paul reveals he's from the tribe of Benjamin. And we know how important Benjamin is in that story of in Joseph. And again, it said God foreknew God's people. Again, that getting there ahead. God's always ahead of us. Jesus is always ahead of us. But the point of this text is, in Romans, is it's all about mercy. It's all about mercy. And, we got to get Micah 6:8 right. Everybody loves Micah 6:8, and I do too. But it's you act justly, you love mercy, and you walk humbly. And notice how we got this thing. You act justly, but you don't love justice. You act justly, but you love mercy. God is a God of mercy. And that justice and mercy belong together. In fact, the ultimate justice is mercy. I mean, one day you and I are going to stand before God and we're going to say, what, I dedicated my life to justice. Now it's my turn. Give me. You going to say justice? No, Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. Lord have mercy. Christ have mercy. So you love mercy. You act justly. When you're confronted with injustice, you act justly. But you walk humbly, and that walk humbly. And the expression, and Paul's writing here from Romans, and the theme, in all of these together, is what I want to really talk about today, and that is that the ultimate expression and manifestation of God's presence is that joy that the brothers had, that you find in the Psalms, and that Paul is expressing here at Romans. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And when I talk about joy, I'm not talking about the joy of, for he's a jolly good fellow joy. I'm talking about my soul rejoices in the Lord, and in your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Enter into the what? The joy of the Lord. So the joy is the mark, the sign, the kind of sign sealed and delivered of the presence of Jesus. Joy is not one feature of the life of faith. And I can't say this enough. Joy is the totality of faith. It is the tonality of faith. Joy is the infallible sign of the Spirit. It is the mark of Christ. The mark of the feast. Now you've heard of the mark of the beast. But today we're talking about the mark of the feast. Without joy, there is no presence of the divine. Where there is no joy, there is no Jesus, and the church becomes torment, dejection, and sickness. So I grew up hearing about the mark of the beast. Anybody remember this? There was a book out, a trilogy. The book that captured me the most was called The Mark of the Beast. You find it in Revelation 3:16, the sign of the Antichrist, the symbol of all that is opposed to Christ. And the debate is, okay, what is the mark of the beast and where might it be? And is it going to be some of these, numbers or barcodes implanted? What? But I want to suggest there's a contrasting symbol, sign, that we've missed. And an opposite sign of the mark of the beast is what I'm calling the mark of the feast, which is the sign of being a Jesus follower. The symbol of the kingdom of God, thy kingdom come, thy will be done. The symbol of heaven itself is the Messianic banquet, the table where we all join at the feast. And what happens at this feast, is this heavenly banquet, this Jubilee time, is joy. That's the mark of the feast. It's not that we have our bellies full and everybody's having good food. It's what comes up from the table, like a souffle, that air of joy that comes up. So rejoice, and again I say, rejoice. The banquet of heaven is a joy that no one can take away from you. That's the mark of the feast. Rejoice, O dawn of the mysterious day. How can you be in a relationship with Jesus and be a sourpuss? How can you be in a relationship with Jesus and not be joyful? I mean, how can you share his resurrection life where he's living his resurrection life in you? And where's the joy? How can you experience God in your life and not rejoice? I mean, joy is the infallible sign of the presence of Christ. It is the mark of the feast. And Paul says this great passage, this epistle of joy from Philippians, where he writes it in prison, and it's got the most joyful passage, rejoice in the Lord always. And again, I say, rejoice. He says it again and again. Joylessness is gracelessness and powerlessness. The power is in the joy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. And when there is faith that is joyless, it is a faith without grace or power. It is weakness and whiteness. This is the kind of sickly religion that makes you sick. This inability to rejoice and dwell in the Spirit. I think this inability to rejoice is a heart disease at the very heart of the body of Christ. And Jesus once talked about the disciples had a hardening of the heart. I remember it was a couple of weeks ago where they'd just seen this incredible miracle of turning the 5 loaves and a couple of fish into feeding the multitudes. And it says that they did not, as they were stuck in the storm, remember? They didn't understand, and their hearts were hardened. I mean, they thought that maybe, all of life from then on was going to be no problems, no pain, no perils, no pitfalls, and there they are, right in the middle of a peril, and they panicked, and they had their joy stolen from them by the peril of the storm. Their hearts were hardened. There's no joy. So joy is different from, still calm seas and contentment and security. Joy is an experience of trust in God that can come in the midst of the worst of times. Jesus himself, it's amazing to me. He talked about a woman's pain turning into joy. He talks about, and this is, where is it? In John 16:21. And you wonder if he thought about his mother Mary as he's talking about this. Let me quote, "A woman giving birth to a child has pain." This is Jesus. "Because her time has come. But when her baby is born, she forgets the anguish because of her joy." The joy. And then he says, "Your pain will turn into joy." The pain of childbirth brings joy. George Matheson was abandoned by he was a blind Scottish preacher. He was engaged in a relationship and she left him, so he lost in love, but he won in spirit, and he wrote these words, "O joy that seekest me through pain, I cannot close my heart to thee. I trace the rainbow through the rain and feel the promise is not vain, that morn shall endless be." It's a joy. This mark of the feast is a joy that transcends your circumstance and your context. "And they were utterly astounded, for they did not understand about the loaves, but their hearts were hardened." How many people, is the church suffering from this hardening of the arteries? Is our churches, is this one of our problems? A joyful heart is the inevitable result of a heart burning with love. That's Mother Teresa. A joyful heart is the inevitable result of a heart burning with love. So when the rhythms of your relationship are in sync with the Spirit, there is this ramping up of that relationship that will create a rapture of joy. It is inevitable. You know, the story of Jesus begins in joy, the Bethlehem story. It ends in joy, the resurrection story. In fact, this so struck Tolkien that he wrote a whole passage on this about how the beginning and ending are just bookended in joy. And how important joy, how have we missed this? Christ, the beginning, joy to the world, the Lord has come, the ending. Christ the Lord is risen today, earth and heaven in chorus say, raise your joys and triumphs high. Sing ye heavens and earth reply. Thank you, Charles Wesley. And why have we missed this? You know, when you're asked what is the shortest verse in the Bible, most everybody can say Jesus wept, but it's not. And I don't know why we focus on the negative and not the positive. The shortest verse in the Bible is rejoice always, 1 Thessalonians 9:16. And the Greek is 2 characters shorter than the Jesus wept. 3 if you use spaces. So weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. This is probably why Jesus is the bright and morning star of hymnody and not the evening star. It's the morning light. And I think of all the accusations against Christianity, the most terrible was uttered by Nietzsche when he said the Christians that he knew had no joy. That is the most devastating insult and attack and critique. When Nietzsche said, there's no joy. Well, if there's no joy, there's no mark of the feast. Who wants a faith where the best that awaits us is to enjoy your religion? The Bible promises something much different. Delight in God's presence, finding your joy in the Lord, the presence of Jesus himself. So this is the essence of faith itself, that joy. The joy that isn't, oh, good things are happening to me. God's blessing me richly. No. My God, I love thee not because I hope for heaven thereby, or because they that love thee not may burn eternally, not with the hope of gaining aught, nor seeking a reward, not as thyself hath loved me, but as thyself hath loved me, O ever-loving Lord. That's St. Francis. That's where the joy comes from. The joy comes from just praising God, the not using God to get something for yourself and then feeling the joy as you get a gift like on your birthday. No. Though the fig tree do not blossom, nor the fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no fruit. The flock be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. Habakkuk 3:17 to 18. One of my favorite wedding invitations was a wedding invitation that said, the only gift I want from you is a joy story. Just write me a joy story. And that was the wedding gift for a couple. They just wanted a joy story so that the joy story of the people that were coming could be a part and absorbed into their joy story. Isn't that wonderful? I love that. The Akathist hymn is probably something you haven't heard of. It's a profound devotional chant. It's a poem that's chanted, actually, which sings the praises. It could be a saint, a member of the Trinity, most often the Theotokos, the Queen Mary, Mother of Heaven, member of the Trinity. And it is, for the 5 Fridays in Lent, it is a hymn that is chanted in basically throughout the world.
An archangel was sent from heaven to say to the Mother of God, rejoice. And seeing thee, O Lord, taking bodily form, he was amazed, and with his bodiless voice he stood crying to her such things as these. Rejoice, thou through whom joy will flash forth. Rejoice, thou through whom the curse will cease. Rejoice, revival of fallen Adam. Rejoice, redemption of the tears of Eve. Rejoice, height hard to climb for human thoughts. Rejoice, depth hard to contemplate even for the eyes of angels. Rejoice, thou who art the King's throne. Rejoice, thou who bearest him who bears all. Rejoice.
In Orthodox churches and in some Catholic churches, but mostly the Orthodox churches. The prayer is organized in 24 sections, and so it's a lot of sitting there and listening. But I want you to hear. I'm just going to read as quickly as I can some of these rejoices that are chanted every Friday in Lent, called the Akathist hymn. And I'm just going to read you some of them. I think there's over 150. I'm not going to read that many, but I want you to hear. It's just a whole service of just rejoice. Rejoice. Here we go. Rejoice, you through whom joy shall shine forth. Rejoice, you whom the curse will vanish. Rejoice, the restoration of fallen Adam. Rejoice, the redemption of the tears of Eve. Rejoice, O height beyond human logic. Rejoice, O depth invisible even to the eyes of angels. Rejoice, for you are the King's throne. Rejoice, you bear him who bears the universe. Rejoice, O star revealing the sun. Rejoice, O womb of divine incarnation. Rejoice, you through whom creation is renewed. Rejoice, you through whom the Creator is born a babe. Rejoice, O seer of the ineffable will. Rejoice, O surety of those praying in silence. Rejoice, you the preface of Christ's miracles. Rejoice, you the pinnacle of his commandments. Rejoice, O heavenly ladder by which God descended. Rejoice, O bridge leading those from earth to heaven. Rejoice, O miracle, much marveled of angels. Rejoice, O trauma, much dirged of demons. Rejoice, you who ineffably gave birth to the light. Rejoice, you who revealed the mystery to none. Rejoice, O knowledge superseding the wise. Rejoice, you who enliven the minds of the faithful. Rejoice, O branch of the unwithering vine. Rejoice, O land yielding the untainted fruit. Rejoice, O husbandry of the merciful husbandman. Rejoice, O birth giver to the planter of our life. Rejoice, O field bearing abundant compassion. Rejoice, O table laden with an abundance of mercies. Rejoice, for you make the meadow produce contentment. Rejoice, for you prepare a heaven for souls. Rejoice, acceptable incense of intercession. Rejoice, oblation for all the world. Rejoice, favor of God to mortals. Rejoice, access of mortals to God. Rejoice, mother of the lamb and shepherd. Rejoice, fold of the rational sheep. Rejoice, O defense against invisible foes. Rejoice, opener of the gates of paradise. Rejoice for the things of heaven. Rejoice with the earth. Rejoice the things of earth. Join chorus with the heavens. Rejoice, never silent voice of the apostles. Rejoice, never conquered courage of the martyrs. Rejoice, firm support of the faith. Rejoice, firm shining token of grace. Rejoice, you through whom Hades was laid bare. Rejoice, you through whom we are clothed with glory. Rejoice, mother of the never-setting star. Rejoice, dawn of the mystic day. Rejoice, you have quenched the fiery furnace of air. Rejoice, you have enlightened the initiates of the Trinity. Rejoice, you who has removed the inhuman tyrant from power. Rejoice, you who has shown Christ, the man befriending Lord. Rejoice, you who has redeemed us from the pagan religion. Rejoice, you who has rescued us from the works of mire. Rejoice, you who ceased the works of fire. Worship of fire. Rejoice, you who saves us from the flames of passion. Rejoice, guide of the faithful to chastity. Rejoice, O delight of all generations. And it goes on and on and on and on. And every Friday in Lent, you sit there and you listen and sing. Rejoice, the Akathist hymn. Friedrich Schiller wrote the poem Ode to Joy in 1785. The poem was very popular in its day. There were more than 40 settings for solo voice composed, a lot of choral renditions. Beethoven contemplated a setting as early as 1793. Some 30 years before his symphony, the Ninth Symphony, was actually written. And Schiller was later, you know how some people, they can't appreciate some of their best stuff. He was later embarrassed about this poem, called it a bad poem, and he said it was really just a sublimated drinking song that he played with and had in the back of his head. But it became one of the greatest of Beethoven's spiritual expressions. This called the Ode to Joy. And Beethoven had to cut more than half of Schiller's poem, but it is, if you can find a better tribute, a better feeling of joy, good luck. For me, this is musically one of the highest expressions of joy. At least brings me to joy. So the mark of the feast is this: a hallmark and homiletic of joy are born into the heart of every incarnator of Christ. And that's what a disciple is, an incarnator of Christ. And the heart of this hallmark and homiletic of joy has 3 chambers. And I end with this, but this could be your whole sermon. 3 chambers to this heart of joy, or 3 courses to this mark of the feast. Number 1, Charis, the Greek word for grace. Charis. Number 2, charismatic, the gifts of grace. But the root word on which charis and charismatic are born and formed is Cara, meaning joy. Oh, the mark of the feast. Charis, charismatic, Cara, joy. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Semiotics is the art of angling, of turning things askew, upside down, inside out, cattywampus, sunny side up, over easy, scrambled, hard-boiled. We hope you enjoyed today's journey But always remember, it's more important you prepare the preacher than you prepare the sermon.